Joe Hunter. I am a relatively recently appointed course leader for Fashion Foundation. I have the best part of 30 years of fashion industry experience. I've run my own company for a fair amount of that time, with a fair amount of success. I've worked for Louis Vuitton, I've worked for Kanye West, I've worked for Alexander McQueen. I try to use my industry experience as well as my teaching knowledge and qualifications to give a rounded perspective of the various pathways, if you like, within the fashion industry. I'll end up with maybe 25 students a year doing Fashion Foundation, and their pathways might be fashion marketing, fashion design, some sort of interest in sustainability. I need to design the modules, of which there are 6 across a year, bring in the relevant technicians to assist with the relevant workshops and design and process experiences that students need to have under their belt so they're fully equipped to move on to the next stage, and hopefully by the time they finish working with me and the team that I work with, they're ready to run into BA rather than kind of crawl or fumble or be a little bit unsure about the next phase. My game plan really, and that's how I see my role, trying to give some breadth, trying to give people opportunity to decide pathways, or indeed to give them the opportunity to be a jack of all trades, which is kind of what I do.
Hi, my name is Basil, and I'm a technical tutor at University of East London for BA Fashion Design and the Foundation class. I'm here today because I'm helping out for the final major project for the Foundation class, for the garment making side of it. I think it's quite important to celebrate different cultures, and I think being at University of East London, we have a lot of people from different backgrounds, and to hear the stories, to understand it, and to help them to bring it to life, it's amazing. So that's why I'm here. My advice for students is don't be scared to try. Make sure you try everything, and exciting things only come through process.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm final year fashion. It's a cool uni. It's got more to offer in terms of art than I think people expect. And there's really, really good tutors, but I'm really stressed because I've only got 4 weeks or just over a month left until I finish, until I leave to the real world. So my advice, don't overthink anything, because overthinking is an affliction and you will procrastinate. And never be afraid to do things wrong, because it's better to start and do things wrong than to not start at all. That's my best advice I could give, I reckon.
My name is Gina. I'm a foundation year student for fashion design. I learned a lot about the industry, and just about fashion in general that I didn't know. I think with me, I have found my style I would say 2 years ago. But I think being in the course has give me more perspective on other people's styles, on how the clothes is produced. I think that's why I got this year more, because I already kind of knew my style. Well, I started fashion design with the goal of eventually creating my own brand. I like comfy clothes. I also like, I would probably want to include like clothes that goes for both men and women. I think it's something I really want to include. And during this year, I learned a lot about sustainability, and I think that's something I would try to incorporate in my brand if I do create one in the end. It's about men's knitwear. My project is also about care and reuse. So I got some jumpers in neat fabric, like cardigans and jumpers, that I'll be cutting them and reusing them, fixing, like this one has a hole on it, so I will fix it with some like sewing or putting other pieces of fabric on top of it.
My name is Joanna, and I do fashion design foundation year. This is an owl dye, which is a Vietnamese garment, a traditional Vietnamese garment, and the country's national dress in Vietnam. Usually is long sleeved, high collar, and the dress goes down to your ankles, and sometimes it can reach the floor and have a tail. It shows femininity of women in Vietnam and modesty, and also at the same time you can still look great without showing skin.
So for the shibori, I need to get different objects and tie the fabric around them to keep the ink from touching it, so that it creates a pattern. I think the shibori technique is originally Japanese. So you tie different objects like carb CDs, pegs and bottle caps to the fabric to create a pattern. And then you go to the sink and rinse the fabric quickly before putting it in the dye so that it absorbs the dye when it goes into the indigo. Indigo is quite natural even in synthetic forms, so it can be used sustainably. And all of the fabric needs to be submerged, and then after 15 minutes it's taken out and left to dry for a little while before rinsing. So here's me taking all of the pieces of fabric out. Then you rinse off the fabric to get all of the excess dye off, and then remove the elastic bands and the pegs. And then it will create the patterns. I decided to blow dry it so that then I could take it home quicker, and it was still quite damp, so I had to put it in paper beforehand so it didn't transfer.
My name's Emily Cudmore, and I'm in Fashion Foundation making retro clothing. My project is got a very long name, but gender euphoric retro optimism, basically, which means clothes for LGBT people, trans people, gay people, and they're more retro to help them identify with who they are. I do it from a personal perspective. I like to dress that way to help me feel better about how I identify with pronouns. I've really enjoyed just making something that speaks to me. You know, it's something I can relate to while I'm making it. It's something that I feel expresses my personality more, so that's been fun. It's been nice. We have Basil, who's recently come in. He's helped me figure out how to actually make the shirt portion aside from the top. Joe's helped me figure out what process to go through with to get the image onto the fabric, which I never would have known that was an option, so definitely been helpful to hear from the two of them. I'm starting off by cutting up an image to get ready to transfer, and to transfer it you have to oil it up. So just spreading cooking oil over it to put the image onto a screen. I'm preparing the screen, scrubbing it with an acid wash, I believe it was, and that gets the previous image off of it so you can put your own and create something with it. Then power wash it off because the acid doesn't take it off on its own, and if you leave the acid on, it damages the screen. Just making sure everything's gone here. Here we're testing the image to make sure it fits, spreading it with the material that goes in the UV machine. Gotta let it dry. It's like a paste almost, so it won't just dry on its own. You gotta heat it fast, otherwise it takes hours apparently. That's how the image will transfer with this in the UV machine. And there's the machine. Once it opens, the light just hits it and it'll leave an imprint of the black and white image that you had on it in all the darker spots. Getting ready to cut my fabric. Here I'm testing out the placement of where I want everything to go. Need to have a kind of messy pattern. I didn't want everything to be uniform for mine. Nice workout session as well, keeping me entertained while I wait for ink. You need to keep the fabric tape down, otherwise when you lift the ink off, it's gonna pick up with the screen and that'll mess up the print you've made. You have to weigh down the screens as well, because some of them you can see here, it's a little bit warped, so if you don't have it as flat as can be, you'll miss details in your print. Here I'm just putting the ink on the screen and squeegeeing it on. In all the white spots, the ink will come through and it'll put the image that I've created onto the fabric itself, and I can do this however many times I need to create the print I want. And here's the first one. And I didn't tape it down properly, you can see my mistakes there. But I think it came out really cool and I'm really happy with how it looks in the end.